Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 14th International Scientific Symposium, Social Inclusion of Individuals with ASD. My name is Marta Wójcik, and I am a Deputy Director for Scientific Research in IWRD and a Director of Teacher Training Center. Together with Eva Budzińska, hello, a trainer in IWRD, and a Deputy Director of Teachers Training Center, we will hold this symposium today. We have the unique opportunity of bringing together scientists and therapists from around the world for a vibrant and intense exchange of views, knowledge, and experience. We are very happy that we have a great number of participants. We are proud to have you all here at this important annual symposium. Before we introduce our first speakers, we would like to introduce you to our institute. The Institute for Child Development has provided extensive help in various areas to children with autism spectrum disorder and their families. The Institute staff consists of highly specialized treatment professionals, and all supervisors have years of experience working with children with autism and have completed internship in the US over the course of many months.
Let me introduce our board of directors. Dr. Anna Budzińska is a director of IWRD, and together with Iwona Ruta-Sominka, the deputy director, they created the institute. Dr. Anna Budzińska is a member of Professional Advisory Board of IBAO and a member of ASAI Board of Directors. Dr. Marta Wójcik is a Deputy Director for Scientific Research and a Director of Teacher Training Center. Dr. Anna Lubomirska is a Deputy Director for Inclusive Education. IWRD created a recommended institutions program for places which conduct treatment according to the principles of applied behavior analysis and meet the IWRD standards. Currently, we have 8 recommended institutions all over Poland. In IWRD, we also create tools for teachers, parents, and therapists. 15 Minutes for Treatment is an online ABA course with 33 episodes, where you can learn how to develop and implement intervention based on applied behavior analysis. Today, we'll have a chance to listen to many interesting presentations on the topic of social inclusion. If you have any questions, please contact the presenters or write your questions to symposium.iwrd.pl. If you are watching us on Click Meeting, you can download the certificate from our website, which is visible on the slide right now. Password will be sent to you, and you can download the certificate for 48 hours.
It is my pleasure to introduce speakers from Institute for Child Development. Dr. Anna Budzińska and Dr. Anna Lubomirska will present Institute for Child Development model of transition children with autism to regular kindergarten. Dr. Anna Budzińska is an expert in the field of autism and has over 30 years of experience working with children with ASD. She is a creator and director of the Institute for Child Development. She runs the ABA courses at the University of Gdańsk, and she developed one of 2 BACB approved course sequences in Poland. She has published many research articles, books, and she is the author of an online ABA course, 15 minutes for treatment. Dr. Anna Lubomirska is a Deputy Director for Inclusive Education in IWRD. She conducts training in applied behavior analysis for teachers and therapists throughout the country. Her research interests include developing social skills in children with ASD. Please welcome Dr. Anna Budzińska and Dr. Anna Lubomirska with the presentation IWRD Model of Transition Children with ASD to Regular Kindergarten.
Thank you, Marta and Eva, for great introduction, and I would like to welcome everybody I'm so happy that you joined us today. For some people it's morning, for some starts afternoon, but just let you know that over 4,000 people were listening to our Polish part, and I hope that still some stayed with us and the new joined for English part of our lectures. I'm very glad that you are with us, and just let you know that we organize the symposium every year, so hope it will be on your calendar every year. And coming to the subject of the lecture, we are really interested in making transition kids with autism to regular kindergartens. But starting with the history, the Institute for Child Development was created by me and by Iwona Ruta-Sominka in 2006, and we are the dissemination site of Princeton Child Development Institute, where I had to spend 1 year of residency and pass really big exam to work with kids before I started this institute. And our institute, our activities consist of treatment, education, research, and use the newest scientific methods. This is very important. And as my colleague said, we train specialists from Poland and from abroad. And we cooperate with many universities in Gdańsk and in Oslo University, and of course with some other organizations as SAAI and IBOA. When we talk about our institute, as I said, we are the founding member of Alliance for Scientific Autism Intervention. And ASAI was founded in 2017 with the aim to develop and promote a model of effective and science-based treatment for people with autism spectrum disorder. And our treatment is based on the model created by Krantz and McClanahan, and it was described in Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis in 1993. And we are very happy that we cooperate with our colleagues from other facilities, especially in United States and Turkey. And we wrote an article together, which was published in December 2023. I hope you will have the chance to read it. The article is also on our homepage. We do a lot of research in our institute, and first we would like to share the research which were the part of doctoral thesis of Marta Wójcik, our PhD director, and we are very happy that we can show and share our knowledge about how to treat kids with autism. And in this article, we described intensive behavioral intervention. And as I said, this is the model created by Krantz and McClanahan. What are the rules of IBI model? The treatment always begin in a treatment center for children with ASD. In this case, it was in our institute. Our employees and our therapists, they pass evaluation every year, and our program is evaluated every year. And of course, we use methods which effectiveness has been proved by scientific research. And coming back to our research, in this research there were kids from our institute which received 22.5 hours of one-to-one treatment per week, and we compared it with children from the other kindergartens with specific eclectic intervention in different places. We were not able to assess how many hours of one-to-one treatment they got. And of course, results are amazing. Children in the IBI group made significantly larger gains in IQ and adaptive behaviors compared to children from the eclectic special education group. And this mean number is 24 to 6. And also we could observe and also measure the reduction of autism symptoms, which were much larger in IBI group than in eclectic group. We also did a lot of research on teaching social skills. And you can see the list of some of our research which were dedicated exactly to the social skills. You can find our publication on our webpage. So if you would like to read it, you can find it. So based on our research, we can highlight the main factors influencing the process of integration with peers. And these factors are a therapy which effectiveness has been confirmed by scientific research. Only this kind of treatment should be used toward kids with autism. We also have to focus on motivation system. This is very important to motivate kids to be in the group. And of course, we have to monitor the progress of kids in the group of peers. And now we will describe how we start from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. We start from the first day of child's attendance to the preschool, from individual intensive therapy. We assess child's deficit areas, meaning all areas of functioning, and based on this assessment, we establish an individual educational and therapeutic program aimed at developing all these deficits areas, while social area is one of the most important. At the same time, to teach these deficit skills, we establish an individual motivational system and choose only these teaching techniques that are scientifically proven and most appropriate for this particular child. So, for example, for one child, we can use some techniques to teach some skill, and to teach the same skill in case of another child, we can use different technique. And throughout this whole process, we cooperate with the child's family. We start this whole process of transitioning, of inclusion of the child to the peer group very carefully. So very often from small group, even from dyad, so a pair of children. And we have to remember that one of the biggest reinforcements is success. So before we can move further, the child must succeed. We cannot force anything. If any difficult behaviors appear, we reduce the time in the group, or we can also change the type of classes. Maybe some other type will be easier for a child at this point. All the time we focus on proper behaviors, especially social behaviors, and by saying focus, I mean reinforce them all the time. And what is really important at the beginning, we reduce our demands toward the child during this beginning of the process, and concentrate mainly on the social correct behaviors, not paying too much attention to the cognitive skills, because we know that only a child that has proper social skills and a skill of cooperating with teachers and other peers can develop his or her cognitive skills. And throughout the whole process, we monitor and analyze data, which we collect during these classes, in order to make further decisions about a child's program. And based on our experience in working with teachers from preschools and from schools as well, and in response to their needs and questions, we've created peer group social behavior observation sheets. What is important concerning these observation sheets, that they are independent of the child's diagnosis. So we can use them as well with the ASD child as in case of any other child with some problems in functioning. So in every case that we plan to include a child in the peer group, we can use these observation sheets. They can be used as well in preschool as in the school. And our main goal was to help teachers while introducing children with ASD, because we know that this very often is one of the biggest problems in education. So some technicalities about this peer group social behavior observation sheets. They allow to determine what social skills a child has mastered at one of the 3 levels that I described later on. And what is really important, that we use them regardless of the level of intellectual and cognitive functioning. Because we know that even if a child his or her cognitive functioning is very good, it doesn't necessarily mean that his or her social development is as good. So these 3 levels that we have here, first one, level 1, measures only basic social skills, such as accepting proximity of peers, teachers or other persons' help, and also being calm in the group. At this level, child is only about 5 to 15 minutes in the peer group. On level 2, a child has to master skills from level 1, plus ability to follow basic instructions and answering simple general questions directed to the whole group and individually to the child. And at this point, we can make the time in the group longer. And at level 3, a child has to master, of course, abilities from level 1 and 2, plus has to be able to answer more detailed questions concerning classes, and also follow more complex instructions directed to the whole group and to the child individually. We also, at this level 3, want to observe if a child acquires new knowledge. So if he or she is able to learn with the whole group and from the whole group of peers. We start always, regardless of intellectual functioning of a child, by measuring social skills from level 1. Each sheet, observation sheet, as you will see later on, starts with some basic information about the period of time spent in the group and motivational system, for example. And there are differences in the time and place depending on the level and type of activity spent in the group. So as an example, lesson at the school, or for example, circle time in preschool, during which some subjects are described. And we have here place which can be determined by the teacher, and suggested place for such a class is at the tables or on the carpet in the preschool. As for the duration, as well, here teacher can determine his own period of time for this particular child, but our suggested duration at level 1 is 5 to 15 minutes. How we give points. 1 is given when the child demonstrates a given skill independently, so without help of other people, for a specific period of time. So for example, this 5 to 15 minutes. And 0 is delivered when the child does not demonstrate a given skill at all. when he or she demonstrates the skill, but only for a part of this specific period of time. So, for example, during 1 of 5 out of 5 minutes, or when he or she requires help of another person to show this skill. For example, help from co-organizing teacher or therapist. And as far as for motivational system, our suggested option is a behavioral contract checked after this whole period of time. But of course, here also teacher can make his own arrangements. So level 1, social skills. The basis here is on not of presenting no self-aggression and no aggressive behaviors towards peers, and on accepting proximity of other children, accepting educational materials used by the teacher, and also accepting help from other people. We have at the bottom, we have also place where teacher can write down his or her own suggestions.
And we score it for 3 days.
Yes, yeah,
One score, one data are not enough in our opinion. So we decided to take it for 3 days. It doesn't have to be in row, can be small break, but it's important to be sure that this level is on exact level we assessed.
Yeah, exactly. Skills from level 2. There are some additional social skills, like, for example, responding to the name and following the group, meaning following general movement after the whole group of children, for example, when they move from the carpet to the table. And on level 3, we have even more social skills, the ability to formulate requests and needs and asking for help. So as you saw, we do not measure cognitive competencies during level 1. We focus on social skills, but we add these cognitive skills from level 2. And at this level, the child has to follow general instructions and answer general questions. But it is important to remember that he or she can do this verbally or using alternative communication. Here we can also start from measuring gaining new knowledge, but it is not necessary at level 2. And on level 3, we have new competencies. For example, responding to more detailed questions concerning material, and also following more detailed, more specific instructions. And here, from now on, it is really important that we monitor if a child gains new knowledge from classes with his or her peers.
And summary, we have prepared cards for 7 types of classes or activities, also checking the self-help activities like dressing or washing or going out with whole group. But of course, this is our proposition. You can add your own classes or your own activities you would like to make transition child to. We recommend testing skills for 3 days, not to be sure that 1 day is enough. And passing measure skills at a given level means that the child can independently participate in selected classes for the time specific in the measurement. So if we decided that the child should show some behaviors at level 1 for 15 minutes, it means it should be for 15 minutes. The measurement can also be used in the case of non-speaking children using alternative communication. And I think this is very important to remember, that we can make transition to kids which are not speaking, but they can still communicate with us. So this is the general. The general sheets are very helpful in such cases too. And teachers can modify the observation cards depending on their needs and type of activities, as I said at the beginning. And I think this is also very important. So if you would like to know more about what we are doing in our Institute for Child Development, you can look at online course 15 minutes for treatment. It's in English, full English, so you don't have to learn speak Polish before. And if you have any questions concerning what we were talking now, you can send us this question to the email, general email, or to our personal emails. You can see it right now. And thank you once more for attending. I will say goodbye to all of you at the end of the symposium, but we are very happy we could share with you our knowledge concerning making transition, because as our colleagues said, we have typical kindergarten in the same building, and it really helps us to make all the research which we talked right now. Thank you very much and have a very nice symposium.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I'm sure we will all use this knowledge in our everyday work. The continuation of service does not end when the autistic individuals enter their adolescence and adult years. The skills individuals learn in their early educational years increase the probability that the autistic adults will lead a happy and independent life. Let's welcome our next speakers, Kristin Cassidy and Emma Quigley, who will extend the topic. Kristin Cassidy is a BA-CBA and the Assistant Director for the Institute for Educational Achievement's Adult Life Skills Program. Kristin Cassidy has extensive experience providing hands-on training and presenting on topics related to staff training and development. Emma Quigley is a trainer for the Adult Life Skills Program at the Institute for Educational Achievement. Her research interests included staff training and development and teaching language and social skills to adults with autism. We invite you to listen to the lecture, The Transition to Adulthood, Necessary Considerations and Applications. Welcome.
My name is Kristin Cassidy, and today with my colleague, Emma Quigley, we will be discussing the importance of the continuation of quality services for adults with autism. When discussing what quality programming includes, it's important to consider the ethical standards put in place to protect the rights of the individuals with autism. Van Houten et al. Published an article in 1988 outlining 6 core principles of the right to an effective treatment. Those are the right to therapeutic environment, the right to services whose overriding goal is personal welfare, the right to treatment by a competent behavior analyst, the right to programs that teach functional skills, and the right to behavioral assessments and ongoing evaluations. And of course, the right to the most effective treatment procedures available. Taken together, what the authors are saying is that a physical and social environment that is safe, humane, and responsive to individuals' needs is a necessary prerequisite for effective treatments. Autistic individuals have the right to a therapeutic environment. For these individuals to be able to thrive and enhance their quality of life, there are several elements that need to be considered. These elements include access to therapeutic services, access to leisure activities that are enjoyable, access to activities that are age appropriate, and additionally, parents, teachers, and staff should be competent, responsive, and caring, and present the fewest restrictions necessary while ensuring safety and development. It is important to remember that the adults have the right to make choices in their lives, much like we do. For example, we have the right to choose what restaurant we go out for dinner. or what movie we would like to see in the theater. So too should these choices be afforded to the adults that we work with. Of course, this is easier said than done. As you may know, making good choices can be hard. It is incumbent upon us as professionals to properly design systems to help encourage adults to make choices. For example, one way in which we do this is that we give a list of preferred lunch options. There are always needs to address through a continuum of services. As you know, in an autistic individual's early educational years, goals are identified across a variety of skill areas. As many of you are familiar, deficits associated with autism impact an individual's ability to be able to thrive in their environment. Some of these deficits may include, but are not limited to, persistent impairments with skills related to communication and social behavior, maintaining relationships, inability to tolerate change in routine, and stereotypic or repetitive behavior, just to name a few. The goals that are identified for each individual are related to the deficits they may display. Continuing to identify target goals throughout their educational years increases the likelihood that when they enter adulthood, they will lead happier, productive, and independent lives. Addressing skills in a variety of areas creates long-term opportunity for individuals in the workplace and community settings as they get older. In our world, there is a significant need for the continuation of quality services for autistic adults. And many adult programs lack the funding and resources necessary to continue to provide effective intervention. With the right tools and effective programming, adults with autism can maintain and acquire meaningful skills that will assist them in gaining employment, being active members of their community, and contributing to their home environments. The Institute for Educational Achievement is a nonprofit organization located here in New Jersey. We provide autism intervention to children and adults. And even at a young age, we are looking for ways to help these individuals in all areas of their lives. So when an individual turns 21 years old, they leave the education program and transition to adult services. The same process applies, whereas assessment and evaluations are used to effectively develop programs for the individuals and to meet his or her specific needs. IEA is committed to providing quality services to adult participants. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, even early on in a child's education, we are developing programs to increase levels of independence. One of these ways in which we do this is by teaching them to work in reduced ratio supervision and to teach them to work under zone supervision. Reduced ratios are when two or more individuals are paired with one staff member, with the goal being to teach individuals to work under these reduced ratios and reduced supervision. For example, while one participant works on an independent task, the life skills coach may provide direct instruction to the other individual. Similarly, when using zone supervision, the life skills coach is responsible for an area within the building in which there may be several adults passing through or working in that location at various times. This is important because under both scenarios, the adults will gain an increase in independence, which is critical for all aspects of their life. My colleague Emma Quigley will now speak to you about some of the systems or tools that we use to ensure the effective transition for adults into their next phase of life.
The staff that work with the adult participants are called life skills coaches. Because IA's Adult Life Skills program does not have a one-to-one staff to participant ratio, life skills coaches are responsible for ensuring the progress of multiple participants simultaneously. Life skills coaches are responsible for designing comprehensive programming for adult participants and for providing support to adult participants during individualized programming in the building, at job sites, and the community. Obtaining and maintaining employment is critical for any adult, but especially for an individual with autism. Life skills coaches have a commitment to ensure that they teach the individual to complete their job responsibilities to a criterion level as outlined by the employer. The adult participants are expected to complete their daily responsibilities, just like any other adults. In some instances, when an individual obtains a new job, they may not have all the skills in their repertoire to complete the job requirements to a criterion level. If skills are lacking, life skills coaches have the responsibility to assess performance and target these deficits when they return to the program after work. As mentioned previously, participants are taught to self-advocate just like us. If they don't have the skills to advocate, the life skills coach will do so on their behalf. This could include securing employment, identifying additional task responsibilities, and pay increases. In addition to life skills coaches, the adult program has trainers who provides hands-on training to the coaches. Trainers work with the coaches to develop programming that meets each individual's needs and to promote successful outcomes. They also assess instructor performance through direct observation and outcome data that is obtained throughout the year. In the adult program at IEA, we teach many different skills. Some of these skills include language and social skills, vocational skills, age-appropriate leisure activities, independence in daily living, and self-advocacy. All of the above skills are targeted among the adult participants if these skills are not in their repertoire, or if they need continued advancement. As we know, there's a need for a continuation of services. IEA's adult program is designed to meet those needs. When an adult participant enters the adult program, it is important to assess if they have the prerequisite skills needed for a job. The first prerequisite skill they must have is being able to remain engaged for extended periods of time, and in the absence of one-to-one supervision. For example, there might be 2 or 3 participants with one life skills coach. Adult participants need to be able to work in reduced ratios. When individuals are appropriately engaged, it allows for faster skill acquisition and effective intervention. Adult participants will need enough endurance to be able to complete tasks for extended periods of time without needing frequent breaks. This also includes teaching them to work on their feet without sitting. The next prerequisite is the adult participant attends to relevant stimuli in their environment. This is essential as autistic individuals may attend to irrelevant stimuli in their environment and may not complete skills to a criterion level. The third prerequisite skill that an adult participant needs is to have a reduction in stereotypic and inappropriate behavior. The reduction of stereotypic and inappropriate behavior is necessary as it maximizes learning. In addition, teaching participants to be flexible when there are changes to routines or when the unexpected may happen is critically important. Last, participants need to be able to respond to feedback in an appropriate manner when provided by a life skills coach or an employer. Having these prerequisite skills will set up the adult participant for success, which ultimately will improve their quality of life. It is also important to recognize that there will continue to be goals identified when preparing adult participants for new and exciting opportunities. Autistic individuals have difficulty displaying skills under a wide variety of circumstances. Therefore, it is important to put programming in place to increase the likelihood that adult participants will display a generalized repertoire. Further, it is important to continue to identify functional skills to enhance their independence. Being able to discriminate what to do when there are unexpected situations or problems could also enhance an individual's problem-solving skills. This will especially be important when working at a job site, as displaying polite and helpful skills and behavior makes individuals likable. When at a job, the adult participant will encounter many different people due to this. The adult participant will need to learn to interact with many different people and must be able to navigate conversational exchanges. Lastly, adult participants' social competency will also need to continue to be addressed as they get older. For example, the way a 7-year-old dresses is very different from how a 25-year-old should dress. As we are all familiar with, first impressions matter, and it is necessary that adult participants present themselves as being clean and neat. Life skills coaches should continue to assess the individual's social competency at a job site so that they are presenting themselves in the most professional manner. If an individual does not have these skills, it's important to put programming in place to accomplish these goals. The job of the life skills coach and trainer are to work together to design effective programming to ensure that goals are being reached. The trainer would also be responsible for providing hands-on training to all life skills coaches that work with the adult participant. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the tools and teaching strategies that we use at IEA to help adult participants be successful and independent. The first is activity schedules. According to McClanahan et al., activity schedules guide workers through lengthy response chains. For example, assembling paint mixing equipment, cleaning hotel rooms, or balancing a checkbook. They also indicate how much work must be accomplished before reward activities are available, and minimize the need for prompts that make workers with autism appear less competent. Activity schedule following behavior is critical because it is an important self-management strategy that facilitates independence. Due to this, it is critical when an individual starts a job, a life skills coach identifies and writes down the necessary steps to complete a job in order to create an activity schedule for this adult participant. Once adult participants gain the skill of following activity schedules, increases the likelihood that new skills will generalize to novel schedules. For example, if an individual has learned to clean the chairs at a restaurant using an activity schedule, they are more likely to generalize this skill to cleaning bar stools in the bar area, since the components of the schedule would be similar. Over time, reinforcement could be embedded into activity schedules to even further enhance the independence of the adult participant as instructors are fading their distance. Another skill that should be taught to adult participants is problem solving. Problem-solving skills are essential for adults to learn since there can be variability in the workplace or other community settings. Laura et al. Explained that problem-solving occurs when an individual is presented with a problem for which he has no immediately available solution. Thus, he must engage in mediating or pre-current responses that increase the likelihood of emitting a successful response. Laura et al. Also further explained that problem-solving skills increase the likelihood of identifying a correct response and might decrease the occurrence of maladaptive behavior by individuals with autism. One way that we have taught this skill is using a flowchart that you can see here on the screen. Here is an example of a flowchart that was used to teach a participant to solve a printer issue. When this adult participant attempted to print a document, the printer did not work. The flowchart was one of the first steps to help remedy the problem. As you can see, the participant needed to identify whether the printer had paper. If the printer had paper, that led to the next problem-solving step that could lead into another flowchart. If the printer did not have paper, the flowchart cued the participant to refill the paper and print it again. The goal is to teach them a generalized repertoire of problem solving. A third teaching strategy that has been effective in promoting independence is self-monitoring. Cooper, Heron, and Hewer describe self-monitoring as procedures whereby a person systematically observes his behavior and records the occurrence and non-occurrence of a target behavior. Self-monitoring is another strategy, like activity schedules, that teaches self-management. The benefit of teaching self-monitoring to autistic adults is it teaches them to be aware of their own behavior. At IEA, we have been successful in using self-monitoring to teach an adult participant to monitor the amount of supplies they use at a job site. For example, one participant in our program would use an excess of paper towels and Windex to clean the windows. Teaching the adult participant to be aware of this helps them to be a better employee, as the more supplies that are used, the more money it will cost the employer. As we know, businesses are in the business to make a profit. Our job is to teach adult participants to be aware of this. Another programming strategy that should be considered when an individual enters the adult program is using scripted interactions to facilitate fluent conversations and enhance their social skills. McClanahan et al. Share that in adulthood, the language deficits characteristic of autism continue to be a focus of intervention. Communication skills are typically necessary in order to use an employee cafeteria or fitness center, respond to instructions or receive feedback from a supervisor, or obtain the social attention of a family member or friend. Autistic individuals need language models to provide examples of appropriate language interactions. Audio prompts and written prompts can be used with age-appropriate content to systematically program for conversations. The use of these prompts also reduces the amount of instructor prompts to promote independent interactions. I've spoken a lot about the importance of quality intervention for autistic adults and how to program for it, but you may be asking yourselves, how can we ensure that successful outcomes are reached and there's accountability for progress? I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the systems we have in place at IEA and all the members of the Alliance for Scientific Autism Intervention use. These systems are based on Krantz and McClanahan's 1993 article on systems analysis in autism intervention programs. While time does not allow me to define each system, I will briefly mention two systems to you specifically: staff performance evaluations and consumer evaluations. As it pertains to the performance of staff members, Townsend et al. Noted that an investment of time and energy in developing skillful and positive staff members using a standardized training and evaluation protocol results in those staff members displaying necessary clinical skills. Each life skills coach has a staff evaluation conducted by a trainer. During the staff evaluation, the performance of the adult participant and life skills coach is measured. Reappointment for the upcoming year is based on passing their evaluation. This ensures that life skills coaches are being accountable for participant progress and specifically links back to what Drs. Krantz and McClanahan originally defined. Another system used to promote accountability is the use of consumer evaluations. Surveys are sent out each year to consumer groups to evaluate whether they are satisfied with the services being provided. Consumer groups include staff members, parents and guardians, employers, and board members. Data are then summarized and program administrators meet to discuss consumer feedback. Townsend et al. Mentioned that ensuring that consumers are satisfied with both the process and the outcomes is part of the commitment to ensuring social validity. As behavior analysts, we have a commitment to improving behaviors that enhance and improve people's lives. All these systems work in conjunction together have ensured that adult participants at IEA are learning meaningful skills and maximizing their potential. Thank you for giving me and Kristin the opportunity to speak with you today. We hope this presentation has provided you with the important quality and effective services for adults with autism. I have included our emails if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your exceptional presentation, and thank you for presenting ethical considerations, which are very important in our work. Thank you so much. We would like to say that we are very proud because 1,000 people is watching us now on the Click meeting and many more on Facebook. And it is my great pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Christa Kassalow. Christa Kassalow is BCBA and a member of the clinical administration team at Princeton Child Development Institute. She has over 15 years of experience providing behavioral intervention to individuals with autism in home, school, and community settings. In her current role, she focuses on areas including professional development and training for new and current staff, collection and analysis of program-wide data, and clinical program development. As learner mature into adolescence and adulthood, valuable opportunities to teach peer interaction decrease, as does accessibility to inclusive community recreation programs such as summer camps. In her presentation, Christa Kassalow will describe methods used to expand social skills repertoires for teenagers with autism in an inclusive summer program. Please welcome Christa Kassalow.
Hi, it's so nice to see everyone. Can you hear me okay? Wonderful. My name is Christa Cassalow, and I'm excited to share some information with you about PCDI Summer Wonders program, which was developed recently to increase opportunities for our students with autism to learn and practice social skills among neurotypical peers. I want to thank our program director, Amanda Freeman, for her help in preparing this presentation, as well as supporting this very crucial part of our programming at PCDI. We are a small nonprofit organization which provides school day services for students ages 3 to 21, as well as adults over the age of 21, using the science of applied behavior analysis. Many of our learners with autism have difficulty in acquiring language and communication repertoires in a manner that is consistent with neurotypical development, and often engage in responses that may interfere with learning, including vocal and motor stereotypy and disruptive behavior. We often begin to teach language and communication repertoires in a highly contrived manner. This allows for us to establish stimulus control and provide sufficient opportunities for learners to practice necessary skills. It's challenging, however, as these conditions do not always promote generalization in a manner that allows for learners to display these responses in a novel context. Additionally, the rewards that are delivered to students during this time are often in the form of tangibles and are highly meaningful to learners, but differ greatly from those rewards that would naturally reinforce social interaction in other settings. For some of our learners, they begin to meet the prerequisites to practice these skills in other settings, such as a transitional educational classroom, while playing at a park or playground, or in a sports class. However, these types of activities are not always accessible for many of our learners, and we can't always control what other people do in these settings or the types of activities that learners will engage in. And so for students who benefit from consistent learning and teaching environments, this can often be hard in acquiring skills in a manner that is rapid and comparable to the acquisition of these skills with neurotypical peers. For some of our students, we're also able to introduce neurotypical peers at PCDI, but this may happen on an inconsistent basis, perhaps once or twice a year for a few hours or few days. And we are able to practice skills in ways that we're in manner that is consistent with programming at PCDI. But again, this provides limited opportunities to promote generalization, and we're still using highly contrived teaching methods. So we began to wonder if we could ever develop a program that would allow for us to teach these very important social skills in a generalized yet individualized manner for many more of our learners at PCDI. And with this, we decided to develop our Summer Wonders program. We piloted this program in July and August of 2022 by inviting the children of our staff members to serve as neurotypical peers over an 8-day period. During this time, we altered many of our instructional spaces and our programming to include lessons and activities that would promote social skills, interaction, conversation, and play. We ran this program a second time in 2023 and found that these were 4 critical areas where we wanted to focus our efforts to really enhance the quality of teaching that we were providing to students in our program. In the area of lessons and activities, we identified that it was important to be able to not only focus on goals that students were learning throughout the regular school year via their individualized programs, but to perhaps look more broadly at social skills development on a whole and look at the prerequisites that were necessary to participate in a group activity. So in our first year, we did often replicate the exact programs that learners were completing in the classroom during the regular school year, but found that it limited opportunities for our peers to become really engaged within the activities, and created a lot of contrast for our students when they then practiced these skills outside of our Summer Wonders program. We often saw some more behavioral excesses as a result of that contrast. So in our second year, we really wanted to think more clearly about how we developed lessons and activities for the Summer Wonders program. We realized that in areas of staff development and training, as well as volunteer prerequisites, this was another area of growth for us. In our first year, we provided very limited training to our staff and to the volunteers about what they could expect and what was required of them during the Summer Wonders activity. This really limited the number of opportunities that we had to teach. So in year 2, we took time to develop and provide training to staff throughout the year in areas of supporting language and communication repertoires and facilitating social interactions. And during our second year, we were much more successful in capturing opportunities to reinforce independent initiations, spontaneous and novel language that were used by our PCDI learners. We also included lessons to our peer volunteers throughout Summer Wonders so that they could understand the learning differences of learners at PCDI, but also so that they could understand similarities. They can identify interests and strengths of the PCDI learners, which would better promote the growth of a foundation for friendship and appreciation for their learning differences. As we look to our program size during Summer Wonders, we focused primarily in our first year on targeting our students ages 3 to about 10 years old. In our second year, we wanted to really focus on our high school students, which at the time served almost 50% of our student population, and expand Summer Wonders programming to meet their needs as well. We had many volunteers who gave up their time for about 10 days in 2023 to join our Summer Wonders program, which provided us with an amazing opportunity to teach these skills. And finally, as we are an applied behavior analytic program, we really wanted to incorporate data collection opportunities. The first year, we were trying very hard to just get our program up and running. And in our second year, we identified some very simple data collection procedures that we could use to understand if the programming that we were providing was effective and meaningful for our learners. I'll take some time now to talk through our development of the Summer Wonders program that was targeted towards our adolescent students in 2023. So you can better understand what was required to be able to adequately address these learners' needs. Our first step was focusing on goal development and planning. Prior to Summer Wonders, we began to meet with our high school program trainers and shift programming for those students so that they could develop the necessary prerequisites as well as interests to be able to participate in an ongoing Summer Wonders activity. Some of the activities that we included were an art group, a game club, and expanded teaching during lunch and study hall to promote social interaction, as well as an expansion of learner interests. During these art groups, clubs, lunches, and other leisure times, we were able to reduce the number of staff that were required in that area. For many of our young learners, we provide one-to-one staff to student support throughout the day. But in our high school group, as students are going through adolescence, approaching adulthood, and hopefully gaining employment in the future, we look to reduce our staff ratio. And so during these times, we typically had one lead teacher and perhaps 1 to 2 other staff members who could provide individualized support and prompting to learners in these group environments. We also made sure to give time for our high school trainers and our Summer Wonders instructors to review individualized program goals, conduct learner observations so that we understood the type of content that we could include within our Summer Wonders program. A critical area for us was beginning to explore the use of social skills assessments to better understand what categories, skills, and repertoires students needed to learn in order to have a more developed and complex repertoire. We decided to develop our own questionnaire, which we then administrated to our peer volunteers during our second year of Summer Wonders. Caregivers were given a digital survey via Microsoft Forms, and we got responses back about our peer participants and certain social areas and goals that would be important for us to focus on during Summer Wonders. We analyzed these data to see if there were overlapping goals and found that areas of fostering friendship and relationships, being able to demonstrate good sportsmanship, such as tolerating a win or a loss, as well as self-regulation and management of emotions, to be very important areas for our peer volunteers to work on. And those happen to also be very good areas for our PCDI learners to work on. With the analysis of these data, we were able to then develop our lesson plans and activities. Each day, we would create a lesson which included a brief overview of target social skills and then opportunities to practice in a group environment the target skill. We then provided about 2 to 3 opportunities for students to complete an activity that will allow for them to practice the skill in repetition, and then provided group feedback via a group motivational system at the end of the activity. All of the activities that we selected were familiar to our PCDI learners, but very different. We made sure to include visual supports, which are of course very helpful to learners with autism in our program, and included previously learned content, response requirements that were known or very accessible for learners to display, and made sure to balance teacher lessons, open-ended projects, so that students were not being placed with demands all day long, that they had some opportunities to make choices as well. These are some examples of activities that we completed during Summer Wonders, and I'll go into greater detail about those now. During our icebreaker activity, we wanted to make sure to give opportunities for PCDI learners and the peer volunteers to get to know one another. So on the first day of Summer Wonders, learners completed a questionnaire. They practiced asking each other questions, writing down responses, and then I took those responses and created a bingo board. The next day, we played a bingo activity, which our PCDI learners loved and had learned to do during our game group, and we practiced that skill. We also worked on sportsmanship by playing quick win-lose games such as tic-tac-toe, completing relay races, and other matching games, which allowed for us to practice things that you could say if you won a game, if you didn't win a game, which is a wonderful toleration exercise for everyone involved. Open-ended activities included some of our art activities. Because we had an art club, students were used to practicing and creating art of all kinds. Students could engage in conversation during these activities, but it also provided an opportunity for students to just focus on their art and just be around in an environment with other people. These are an example of some of the visual supports that we used during PCDI, both during the lesson and in an activity. One of which was called roll call. Every student or participant was given a role. They had an item that they were in charge of placing in or out of a suitcase. Only that person could touch the item, and we had a leader who helped to organize the movement of objects in and out of the suitcase. I believe we have a short clip of this video. And so during that activity, students would have to manage their materials and take turns. During week 2, we did a similar activity using toothpicks and small marshmallows, where one student was allowed to touch the toothpicks, the other student was allowed to touch the marshmallow, and they had to work together to create shapes, 3D objects, as well as towers, using this type of activity. And we have another video clip, which I'll ask for us to play. And students love that. We actually did a challenge activity at the end of the week using dry pasta and large marshmallows, and they could build 2 or 3 foot towers. Here's an example of some of the initial data that we collected during Summer Wonders in 2023, which looks at levels of engagement for students in our program. We conducted 4 observations, and you can see that over the course of these 4 observations, all levels of engagement were well above our benchmark at 90% or better. At most, 40% of intervals included some type of prompt, and for our definition, that can include a praise statement as well as a verbal prompt. There were very few intervals across these 4 observations, which included the exchange or delivery of a tangible reward. So this data are very promising to us, and we hope to expand that in the coming years. After Summer Wonders, we hope to promote the maintenance of these skills learned during this period by allowing for our high school students to plan parties and activities where we can then invite our Summer Wonders peer volunteers to join us throughout the year. And so in late October for Halloween, we had a Halloween party and invited our peers to visit us at PCDI. And more recently, we had a Valentine's Day dance in February, where again, students could interact with each other, which is really wonderful. We're hoping that in the future we can focus on these areas. As I mentioned, we hope to extend our research on measures of engagement. We want to continue to explore the use of social skills assessments, screenings, and questionnaires, not only for our peer volunteers, but really for our PCDI learners as well, to inform their programming throughout the year. We would find it valuable to gain information from our peer caregivers and participants to assess the social validity of the Summer Wonders program and truly understand the effects and impact of the outcomes that we hope to achieve during this program. And finally, we want to continue to explore new methods for teaching and supporting conversation and social interaction with our PCDI learners and peers. I so appreciate your attention this afternoon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much. We are very grateful for the time and effort you took to share your experience with us. Thank you. Successful transition from an intensive intervention environment to a more mainstream setting is a highly valued goal for nearly all recipients of ABA intervention. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sandra Gomes, BCBA-D, a Director of Children's Service at Somerset Hills Learning Institute and adjunct lecturer at Manhattansville College. Dr. Gomes has presented at national and international conferences on various topics. Please welcome Dr. Sandra Gomes with lecture Effective Procedures for Transitioning Students with Autism from Intensive to Minimally Supportive Intervention Settings. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, everything is fine.
All right, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Gomes, and today I'm going to review the transition model we've used at Somerset Hills Learning Institute to transition students with autism back to their sending school districts. So before I begin, I just want to take a moment to thank our colleagues in Poland for organizing this amazing conference, and to my colleagues at Somerset Hills Learning Institute for creating this presentation with me. Okay, so let me go back one slide. So to help you know a little bit more about us, Somerset Hills Learning Institute is a private school for students with autism that has been in operation for 25 years. We currently serve 29 students and their families. Like the Institute for Child Development, we're also a dissemination site of the Princeton Child Development Institute and a member of the Alliance for Scientific Autism Intervention. Our goal for all our students is to achieve a successful transition, whether it be returning to their sending school district or to the workforce at 21. So for this presentation, we're going to concentrate on our successful efforts in transitioning students back to their sending school districts. So our process starts on day one. The process of transitioning students back to their sending school district starts on the first day a student arrives at the Institute. From the moment a student enrolls, we are developing a strategy of how we will prepare them to be educated in less restrictive settings. So here's an overview of our process, which shares some similarities to the process Anna described earlier that they use for transitioning children to kindergarten. So while at Somerset Hills Learning Institute, we individualize programming and implement supports to help students acquire the necessary skills for a possible transition. For each support that we put in place, we plan how we will later remove it as the student learns to become more and more independent. Part of our process entails checking student progress against our 11 criterion for transition, which I'm going to discuss in more detail in a little bit. As the student progresses through those 11 transition criteria, we begin to identify an intermediate setting, such as a private school nearby, to simulate a typical classroom setting. And whenever possible, we bring in typically developing peers, mainly siblings of the students or staff children, as peer tutors through our A Day Off with Friends program. This initiative provides opportunities for typically developing peers to join our students when they're off from school, but we remain open. So this approach provides us with opportunities to simulate more what a classroom setting would look like. And once the student meets criteria necessary in the intermediate setting, we then start to initiate coordination with the child's school district to begin the transition process in that setting. So here are the 11 transition criteria we use to determine when a student is showing readiness for a potential transition back to their sending school district. As you can see, some of the transition criteria include high levels of engagement, low rates of inappropriate behavior, observational learning, delayed reinforcement, and generative language, just to name a few. I do want to point out that the 6 criteria highlighted in yellow, so that is high levels of engagement, low rates of inappropriate behavior, operating from delayed reinforcement, generating novel language, following group-oriented and written directions, and generalizing skills across settings, people, and materials have been used for many years by our colleagues at PCDI. These criteria were initially developed by our mentors, Drs. Krantz and McClellan. Throughout the years, Somerset Hills Learning Institute has incorporated additional criteria that we've identified as crucial for success in the transition environment. All right, so our first criterion is high and sustained levels of engagement during group activities. Although this varies from student to student, generally we define engagement as visually attending to relevant people. This could be the teacher or a student who is speaking in front of the classroom, stimuli being written on a board in front of the room, or a workbook page that the student is engaged with, using materials purposefully. So for example, using a pencil to write answers on a piece of paper rather than engaging in stereotypy with the pencil, such as tapping, for example. And if relevant, emitting contextual vocal responses when asked to do so by the teacher. So if, for example, answering a math question when being called upon within 3 to 5 seconds rather than sitting in silence. We typically measure engagement using momentary time sampling across different times of the day. And to evaluate transition readiness, we look to ensure criterion performances reflect a wide sample of relevant context, including novel settings, people, and activities. A second and just as important criterion is low to zero rates of interfering and harmful behavior. Specifically, we look to see that students engage in 0 rates of harmful behaviors such as aggression, self-injury, eloping, and so on, and low to 0 rates of interfering behaviors like non-contextual vocalizations or motor movements that could potentially be stigmatizing in the transition setting or distracting to other students. We also consider students' engagement levels during unforeseen situations like fire drills or disruptions to their typical routines, such as a teacher's absence. And these measures are typically captured during full day interval recording systems. Another important repertoire for transition readiness is age-appropriate play and social interaction skills with peers. This includes both initiating and responding to peers during conversations, using joint attending skills, having conversations or interactions for an adequate length of time, and about topics that are of mutual interest to the same aged peers. Our next transition criteria is observational learning. Replicating this process at school or in our school setting can be challenging due to the limited number of peers that we have access to. However, we frequently create simulations by having the student leave the classroom and enlist their peers as helpers. So while the target student is outside of the classroom, we instruct the other students as a group to undertake a new task or retrieve materials such as art materials or a snack, for example, and upon the target student's return to the classroom, we observe his or her behavior and responses. We also want to ensure that students tolerate delays in reinforcement. So as we teach our students to operate from delayed reinforcement systems through token economy systems, for example, we must also ensure that they're completely faded. So once we transition away from token economy systems, we may transition to a points-based system, which is typically found in classroom settings. For students who might still require a motivational system to maintain desired behavior, in the transitional setting, we ensure that the desired behavior can be maintained through a behavioral contract. We also evaluate the extent to which the student interacts using generative language. By this, we mean the extent to which the student's vocal productions approximate the degree of variability we might observe from typically developing children. So this is important because insufficient variability or excessive repetition can be stigmatizing to the student. Though this can be challenging to measure, we look at two key aspects. We look at spontaneous language, where the student combines elements from various previously used scripts to create new contextual language combinations, and generalization across various topics and interactions during conversational programs. We also look to ensure students have no or minimal receptive or expressive language skill deficits when it comes to speaking, reading, and writing. So for example, we expect to observe articulation, intonation, vocabulary usage, length of utterances, and conversation durations comparable to those of their peers of the same age. Additionally, we ensure that our students can accurately respond to questions promptly without extended pauses. This criterion also applies to academic skills, such as reading with expression, which we have identified as an area requiring additional focus for many of our learners. We also expect that our learners have minimal or no skill deficits in written language skills and can demonstrate appropriate writing pace, using small font size, and effectively transcribing from a board when necessary. For this criterion, we evaluate the student's readiness with regards to following oral and written directions across various scenarios that might be presented in a regular classroom setting. Specifically, we ensure that students are able to follow multi-step directions, that they're able to follow conditional directions such as if you're done, line up at the door, temporal directions, when you're finished, move on to page 45, or after lunch, grab a book and sit down. Following directions at a speed similar to peers, following written directions on a board as well as a worksheet, or directions given to the class while the student is already engaged in an activity. For this transition criterion, we strive to ensure that students reach a level of proficiency as close as possible to their grade level. So if a student is well below grade level in any of these subjects that you see here on the screen, they're unlikely to benefit from instruction in a regular education classroom aimed at advancing these skills in these areas. We also look for students to have age and grade appropriate self-help skills, specifically as this relates to independence in the transition setting. So for example, fastening clothing independently, tying shoes, putting on a jacket, or hanging up a coat. We also want to ensure that clothes and hair are neatly kept. And we do recognize that what is acceptable to peers and adults regarding children's appearance can vary greatly. So we are looking to ensure that students' appearance is not something that will draw undesired attention from others, and that they can appropriately manage or maintain their appearance for their age. In our final criterion, we ensure that the student effectively generalizes all pertinent skills across various relevant factors, encompassing each of the 10 criteria that I just previously mentioned. So across all skills taught, we look for consistent evidence of criterion generalization assessments conducted with new teachers, unfamiliar peers, unfamiliar settings, particularly in large group settings or with unfamiliar activities, novel activities in academic subjects, in alternate formats and delivery methods of instruction, such as content presented on a board versus on worksheets at a desk. In addition, we ensure that students maintain engagement not only while seated at their desks, but also standing in a gymnasium during physical education classes or attending assemblies during a large open space with numerous attendees. So to monitor the progress of students on these 11 criteria, we use the document displayed here to outline a student's readiness to begin the transition process. On the right-hand side, you can see a sample of the entire document, while on the left-hand side, you see a selected portion relating to our initial criterion, which was high levels of engagement. As you can see, we've listed all of the necessary skills and IEP goals and objectives along the left side of the document, and we summarize any relevant data in the respective columns to the right. Towards the bottom of the document, we summarize things that are going well, the student's strengths, and then we also summarize any areas for continued goal setting. And we do this across all of the 11 transition criteria. Once we begin the process of evaluating a student's readiness for transition against those 11 criteria, we also start looking for suitable intermediate transition settings. Rather than begin immediately in the student's public school transition setting, we partner with schools that are close to Somerset Hills Learning Institute, but unaffiliated with the student's school district. And we do this because in the early phases of transitioning to the intermediate setting, students may struggle to generalize their skills, and there's a potential that stereotypic behaviors may persist, such as fixating on a single topic of conversation or engaging in disruptive behavior, which could result in social stigma. Introducing an intermediate environment between our school and the transition setting offers a distinct advantage. It allows students to further develop readiness skills without the risk of gaining a negative reputation among peers in the final transition setting. The length of time the student spends in this setting and when they first enter it really varies student by student, but it is contingent on meeting or very close to meeting the 11 criteria that I just described. In the final transition setting, the student's school district, we collaborate and partner with the school district to individualize and ensure a smooth transition for the student. Our role remains largely unchanged from the intermediate setting. We prioritize observation over direct interaction with the student to minimize disruptions to their focus to the classroom teacher. Initially, we may accompany the student for a few hours, then eventually half days, returning to Somerset Hills Learning Institute in the afternoons to address any skill deficits that were observed that morning. As indicated by data reflecting the student's readiness, we gradually extend the student's time in the transition setting until they are attending a full school day. Subsequently, we then start to systematically decrease our presence, transitioning from partial days to continued to occasional hours, eventually adopting an unpredictable schedule. Ultimately, we cease attending the transition setting with the student, which signifies the formal completion of the transition process. However, even after a student is fully enrolled in the transition setting, we maintain open communication with the family, with the school district offering assistance and input as needed. Okay, so this is, we're going to take a quick look at our longitudinal outcomes for students who have transitioned from Somerset Hills Learning Institute to less restrictive settings using the model I just described. So as you go from top to bottom, students are ordered by the age that they are today. The horizontal bars represent their age from left to right. So the green section illustrates the duration during which each student was enrolled with us here at the Institute, while the blue bars depict the period following their departure from us to present day. Then on the far right of each bar, there's a note about their current placement or status. And as you can see, several of the students are either employed or they're in high school, graduate school, or undergraduate school. So for example, student number 4 was enrolled when he was just about 3 years old and was with us for 4 years. before transitioning to his sending school district. And he's currently 22 years old and is currently in graduate school. On average, these students stayed with us for about 4 years before transitioning to a less restrictive setting, whether that was their sending school district or a less restrictive private school. Okay, so in summary, I hope that our description, or that my description of how we approach supporting students with autism back to their sending school districts emphasize the importance we place on being systematic and proactive in our planning, establishing systems, criteria, and programming to ensure that our decision-making remains data-based at all times, individualizing each step of the process and expectations to the individual student, the family, partnering with the school districts, and approaching the transition process as a collaborative effort between us, the public school setting, the families, and other stakeholders. We find that an approach to transition that incorporates all of these elements contributes to an effective and successful transition with satisfactory outcomes for all parties involved, and ultimately culminating in the best outcome for the student that we're supporting. Here are some of our references. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at research@somersethills.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gomes, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. It was a very interesting lecture. Thank you so much. It is my great pleasure to introduce the next speakers, Alison Kanner-Murray and Katie Wilson. Alison Kanner-Murray is the Associate Director and Behavior Consultant of Fundre 613. For the past 10 years, Alison has been working with children and young adults in both home and school settings, providing interventions for children as young as 3 years old and young adults in vocational programming. Alison is also responsible for leading in-service in professional development and conducting staff performance evaluation throughout the year. Katie Wilson is an Associate Director at Fundre 613. She has been providing behavioral intervention in both home and school settings since 2010. Katie previously served as behavior consultant at the New York Child Learning Institute, delivering behavioral interventions, providing training to staff and families, and contributing to research initiatives. Please welcome Alison Kanner-Murray and Katie Wilson in the presentation, Promoting Independence to Achieve Community Integration for People with Autism.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Today, we will be talking about promoting independence to achieve community integration for people with autism. As people with autism move into adolescence and adulthood, programming goals may shift away from academic-related behavior and move toward increasing one's own personal independence and integration into society. To achieve the goals of independence and integration, people with autism need to acquire responses in a variety of areas, including communication, self-care, and community skills. Within each of these areas, we will also be discussing self-management strategies for our learners to further promote their independence. The first major skill area that we can discuss is that of communication skills. Many of our learners have histories of learning various communicative responses, such as interactions with instructors, with peers, and with their families. As learners approach adulthood, we also want to make sure that they are emitting similar social responses with people outside of where teaching occurred, such as in the community. In fact, researchers have found that community and vocational success is greatly affected by social aspects. Therefore, we want to ensure that we teach these responses as successfully as possible. Some of the main communication responses that we expect to be displayed include greetings and salutations, polite statements such as please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. We also want our learners to be able to carry a conversation with other people, And finally, we want to teach our learners to recruit assistance if needed. These are just some of the main communication responses important to our young adults, although there are many more that are beneficial to teach. Communication is such an important skill that occurs on a daily basis across a variety of people and can have a strong impact on the opportunities that are presented to our learners. So how do we go about teaching these skills? A very simple approach is to use verbal prompts to tell the learner to emit the appropriate response in a given social situation. This form of instruction is very useful in community settings, given that verbal prompts are unobtrusive and appear typical to the types of instruction that would appear amongst other people in these settings. Although verbal prompts can be effective in evoking responding, they also come with the cost of being difficult to fade out. As the learner demonstrates acquisition of the language response, verbal prompts should be faded as quickly as possible to avoid dependence on this prompt. An effective evidence-based procedure for teaching communication skills is the script fading procedure developed by Drs. Krantz and McClanahan. This procedure uses audio or textual cues to teach learners to engage in communicative responses with other people. Script fading has been proven effective in many peer-reviewed research studies on teaching conversation to instructors, to peers, and to families. Initially, scripts may be placed upon items in the learner's environment or provided as a list for the learner to reference. Scripts are tailored according to the learner's language skills and incorporate language that is typically used by their peers. The effectiveness of this procedure lies within its use of stimulus fading. Stimulus fading is the gradual removal of an antecedent stimulus that was used to evoke the target behavior. As the stimulus is faded, the control is transferred from the scripts to the environment in which they were placed. Ultimately, what we want to see is an increase in the number of unscripted statements as the scripts are faded out of the environment. Here is an example of the script fading procedure used to teach interactions among children with autism when playing games on the computer. This photo shows various scripts superimposed on a laptop with statements such as, "Computer games are fun," and "Check out this game." As the learner reliably emitted these scripts, the scripts were removed one word at a time from end to beginning until the scripts were fully removed. At that last fading step, the control for interactions was transferred from the scripts to the presence of the laptop and a friend. Overall, this procedure is very helpful in teaching interaction skills, as well as the other skills that are important in conversation, such as turn taking, standing at an appropriate distance, and orienting to the conversation partner. Taken together, this creates a strong foundation for communication later in life as learners transition into the community and work settings. Another important component of teaching communication skills is the reinforcement system for appropriate social behavior. Motivational systems can be modified such that reinforcers of greater magnitude are earned for social responses, or even designating certain potent reinforcers for these targets, meaning that they can be earned elsewhere for other behavior. This may help to increase the future likelihood of correct communication responses. In our program, many of our learners have contracts in place for friendly behavior. This is very important as our learners transition into the community, being that we want them to be friendly and respectful members of society. This contract outlines the specific responses required for a learner to earn access to a choice when he interacts in a friendly and appropriate manner with another person. You can see that this contract indicates that he needs to keep his hands to himself, to stand in one place, and to speak nicely in order to earn his choice. This is reviewed after each possible interaction with another person to help strengthen this friendly behavior. Over time, as he acquires the skill, then the contract may be reviewed on a less frequent basis and will eventually be removed from the environment. We want to remove artificial systems as much as possible as we aim for community integration. Once communication skills have been taught and strengthened in a learner's repertoire, a great step is move toward the use of self-management strategies. Self-management is a key aspect to achieving one's independence and allows the learner to monitor and control his or her behavior for long periods of time without the need for an instructor to be present. Self-management typically involves the use of strategies such as self-monitoring, self-evaluation, and self-reinforcement for achieving the goal that had been set. In self-management, learners learn to discriminate the occurrence of a target response. They reliably self-record one or more elements of the target response in accordance with some standard or scale. They evaluate their behavior relative to an agreed-upon standard and then subsequently deliver selected rewards and reinforcement. The ability for the learner to remain engaged and on task without an instructor creates an ideal foundation for community integration. In our program, we use self-management strategies to teach our learners to engage in conversation with their peers while having lunch together. The learners have been taught to keep track of the appropriate statements that they emit on their own contracts. They keep track of all the statements that they made to their peers, and as long as they achieve a certain number of appropriate interactions, they can earn a choice after lunch has ended. Here is a video of several learners engaged in conversation during lunch at school. You can see that they are very engaged in the conversation and are keeping a frequency count of their interactions. Please play video 1.
No. I like testing a lot of cool stuff.
And also, by the way, Brandon, what's your favorite Oreo flavor?
Vanilla cookie.
What about you, Joshua? Because my
Double
favorite
stuff.
original.
I think double stuff. Maybe double stuff gold.
And also, are you having cheese-a-roni and mac?
No, but I meant piece of cocoa.
I mean macaroni with hot dogs and cheese?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Moses, are you eating chicken and potatoes?
Yes, I'm eating chicken.
Here is a photo of the contract that the learners typically use to keep track of their interactions. For each interaction that they emit, they earn 15 cents to put towards a purchase of a choice. As a next step, they would use a contract similar to this while at a restaurant. Ultimately, we aim to fully fade out contracts such as these.
Another important skill area critical to promoting independence and community integration are responses related to a learner's own self-care and hygiene. A learner's overall personal appearance can have an impact on their approachability and overall interactions with other people in their environment. Research in our field has indicated that one's type of clothing, style of dress, and physical appearance may have a major impact on opportunities for community participation. Therefore, it is important that our intervention strategies focus on this skill area to promote the social acceptance and integration of our learners. So, because of this, starting at a young age, we try to teach our learners a wide variety of self-care skills, which may include brushing one's teeth, washing hands, or using deodorant. We want these skills to be emitted as independently as possible, without the presence of instructors and without the use of a motivational system. These responses should be maintained by natural contingencies in the environment as they are for you or me. To promote the independent completion of these skills, there are several important strategies to incorporate into our teaching. First is the use of manual prompts. We try our best to always remain behind the learner so as not to embed ourselves within the learning environment. We also want to limit the use of verbal prompts. They are more difficult to fade, and we might inadvertently embed ourselves within the learner's repertoire. Another important aspect of teaching is the fading of instructor proximity. Although close proximity to the learner may be necessary during the early stages of teaching, it is important to systematically fade one's proximity to promote the independent completion of a skill. For example, when teaching a learner to brush their teeth, an instructor may stand directly behind the learner, ready to provide prompts if necessary. However, As the learner acquires the skill, the instructor should be able to decrease their proximity. This will help the instructor to be less likely to serve as a prompt for the learner, and for the learner to learn to respond to the relevant cues in the environment. As learners approach readiness for community integration, another important skill that we teach them is to check their own appearance and to recognize the relevant stimuli that affect their appearance. Learners are typically ready for this type of program when they have acquired several of the previously mentioned self-care skills. Here's a sample of what a task analysis may look like for checking one's own appearance. You can see in this photo that the learner is taught to check a variety of responses as they run through the list. They check to see whether or not each component is satisfied and will complete the component if it was not. You can see that this learner is about midway through the task and has checked off the components completed thus far. This is also another example of a nice self-management strategy for this learner. Here's a video of a learner engaging in some of the responses targeted when checking personal appearance. You can see that he still uses the checklist at this point in time, but he is really ensuring that all components are completed to criterion and without the assistance of an instructor. Please play video 2. The next major area related to independence and integration is that of community skills. Integrating our learners into the community allows them to have the same experiences as their neurotypical peers. Prior to considering community integration, however, we want to make sure that our learners are displaying low rates of inappropriate behavior. The occurrence, even on an infrequent basis, of any aggression, self-injury, tantrums, or certain forms of stereotypy may interfere with learning opportunities in the community. Therefore, it is important that there is a nearly total absence of disruptive behavior before entering into community programming. Once we are ready to begin considering community programming, we should also be prepared in terms of motivational systems. Motivational systems should be inconspicuous and not stigmatizing to our learners. We don't want to bring our standard checks or token boards in the community, but instead could use more private systems such as on cell phones, beaded bracelets, or notes that fit in a pocket. The rate and magnitude of reinforcement in the community should be similar to, if not greater than, the rate of reinforcement provided in the school setting. We don't want to allow room for error and also want to strengthen the occurrence of desirable responses in this context. So here we have a sample of a motivational system that is discrete and presents as a standard beaded bracelet. In the community, the learner earns beads for engaging in appropriate behavior, such as walking nicely and being friendly to other people. Here, she has earned 3 beads so far and can make an exchange for a choice after earning all 10 beads. This can be something like earning time back at school or to have a snack in the community. For some of our learners, we might even use self-management strategies for them to monitor their behavior in the community. Here's a sample of a behavior contract saved as an image on the learner's phone. This allows the contract to be taken into the community and will not make our learners stand out to others when reviewing it. He will review the list and indicate either the yes or no, depending on whether he met the goal for the targeted interval. If he received a yes for all responses, he was able to earn a choice. If he received a no, then he would try again for the next review time. After the learner displays readiness and the appropriate motivational system has been established, there are many skills that can be taught related to community integration, and the identification of response targets will be specific to your learner's skills and needs. This is a list of some of the community-related skills that we have taught our learners, but for the purposes of today's talk, we would like to review just a few that can likely be helpful for nearly any learner entering community settings. An important skill area is that of money management. This includes skills such as paying for purchases and budgeting. Before moving into community programming, we teach to many combinations of coins and bills, and even embed the practice of purchasing programs within motivational systems. For example, a learner may earn money throughout the day and can buy a choice as designated by the amount of its cost. As we move into the community, we begin to teach purchasing skills within real-life scenarios, as well as a variety of skills that cannot be targeted directly at our school, such as navigating the store or engaging with the cashier. Here's a sample of a learner who has learned to engage in these skills and with whom the instructor is able to fade their proximity. He's navigating the store independently to find the items he needs and will then proceed to make the purchase. Please play video 3. Embedded within our shopping skills, we also teach the concept of budgeting. One of our learners in the program is making frequent purchases in the community. However, she is learning to operate on a budget of $40 per week. At the beginning of each week, she inputs this amount into a budgeting app on her phone as income. As she makes purchases, she enters each amount as an expense into the app, allowing her to keep track of her remaining funds. With teaching, she has learned to save any money left over to put towards a bigger purchase in the future. This is a great concept to teach our learners as they become ready to integrate into the community and will eventually earn money in vocational settings. We've highlighted just a few of the important skills and strategies that will help to promote independence and community integration for our learners. When we incorporate these goals related to communication, self-care, and community skills into our everyday programming, we can help our young adults with autism to live a life with dignity and independence. We thank you for your time and welcome any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you so much for your outstanding presentation. We really liked the videos you presented during your presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for attending our symposium. Thanks to all speakers for a very interesting presentation. I am sure that your presentation will trigger discussion and will project researchers to new development. We would like to thank the audience for attending our symposium. Thank you so much for being a part of our event and community. We are grateful for your support and can't wait to see you again soon. We would like to invite you to visit our website for more information about conferences and courses. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to the organizers and all the people who work with us to make this symposium happen. And please welcome our directors, Dr. Anna Budzińska and Iwona Sominka, and please say a few words at the end of our symposium.
Yes, Marta and Eva, thank you very much. It disappeared, but thank you very much for providing all the symposium. It's really done great work, and thank you very much for introducing every speaker, and yes, it was really done very nicely. And of course, thank you all the presenters. Thank you for attending, for being with us, and you are always open to share your knowledge with our participants, and it's really great think that we are together, even when we are far away from each other. And we would love to see all of you, our participants, again next year.
Yes, thank you also for all participants. Today it was really a big number, 4,000 people attending the symposium. So, and that was also a little problems technical with the big number, but everything went very, very well. And for the participants, thank you very much. You choose to be with us on Friday. It's not easy, we understand that, especially in Poland now it's almost, it's a late evening. So yes, thank you for being with us to the end of the symposium. And we invite you for the next symposium. We really do hope that we will see
on the 15th
International Symposium in March 2023.
And of course, we would like to thank to our technician group, which is very small, but works very hard. And yeah, to people who support us, Click Meeting and Barbara Piasecka Foundation, and all University of Gdańsk, who this institution always supports us. So see you next year. And if you would like to read more about our activities, please visit our homepage and give the like to our Facebook if you liked our symposium. It will be great. And have a nice night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night. See you next year.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Dobranoc.